What's happening? What's happening, everybody? Sorry about the still messy place, but trying to get stuff moved around, and it is what it is. Anyway, forget about that for now. What's happening? Colin Crandall here, your host of MMA Power Hour, aka MMA Professor. We are going to jump in here for a quick first look at this coming Saturday night's card, UFC Fight Night 211. Looks like it's at the Apex in Las Vegas, and it's going to be headlined by heavyweights Alexander Volkov and Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Trying to figure out which way to do it. Normally from the bottom up, so let's do it that way. But I promise you, we won't spend too much time on the undercard here, and then we'll get to the meat and potatoes of it, the ones you want to hear about pretty quickly. Love to have you guys jump in and say hello, and that would be great. And feel free to do so if you're around right here in the evening time in the West Coast, 5:41 p.m. on the clock, and the East Coast would be 8:41, 7:41 Central, 6:41 Mountain. There's a little time zone entertainment for you. But anyway, jumping into it, first fight looks like it's Aaron Blanchfield against J.J. Aldrich. Huge favorite. One of the biggest favorites of the night as of so far is Aaron Blanchfield, almost a 6-1 favorite. Aaron Blanchfield is coming off a very impressive victory over Miranda Maverick, and Miranda is a really good fighter. We've interviewed her several times, and she will be back for sure. But yeah, Aaron Blanchfield is on a 5-fight winning streak. She is 23 years old only, cold-blooded, as they call her, fighting out of Renzo Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and a record of 8-1. Her only blemish was a split decision loss to the very talented Tracy Cortez. So other than that, and when it's a split, that means they could have gone either way. At least most of the time, she would be a 9-0 fighter. Anyway, very, very tough. Her wins in the UFC include Sarah Alpart Miranda Maverick over in Invicta. She beat Brogan Walker and Victoria Leonardo, and also a good fight for my friend Jason Lederfine's organization, CFFC. She did have a great win over in that organization. 9 fights only, and only 23 years old for the youngster Aaron Blanchfield at 5'4", 125. J.J. Aldrich. Only in the last couple of years has she been fighting at flyweight. Before that, she was a strawweight. As a flyweight, she is looking good on a 3-fight win streak, beating Courtney Casey, Vanessa Demopoulos, and Jillian Robertson. Before that, she lost a split to Sabina Mazo and beat Lauren Mueller. So technically, had that split gone her way, she'd be on a 5-fight win streak. It just looks like the odds makers feel that while JJ is a tough, rugged veteran with almost twice the fights, 6 years older, that she's not going to be able to do anything against Aaron Blanchfield. I disagree. I'm not going to go so far as to say I would pick Aldrich, but I think she's very tough. And I think the odds makers have this a bit of an overlay, as they call it, making Blanchfield a huge favorite. Anyway, on to the next fight. We are looking at, man, that looks messy over here. You got to get rid of that mess sometime soon, or get a virtual background or something like that. And I will. Anyway, next fight we have Rinat. Wow, this is a good name here. Rinat Bakhretdinov out of Moscow, Russia. The Gladiator is 18-1, but this is his UFC debut. No contender series fights for him. No fights in LFA or CES or CFFC, just coming directly out of Europe from UAE Warriors and a couple other organizations here into the UFC. That's question mark. 30 years old, though, 19 fights, 18-1. And his one fight was his loss was a unanimous decision loss, but it was 9 years ago. He is going up against Andreas Michailidis. And Michailidis, the Spartan, out of Athens, Greece. And he is 33 years old, 13-5 record. In the UFC, he is 1-2, having lost to Modestas Bukauskas, beat KB Bular, and then did just lose by stoppage to Alex Pereira. So I would imagine that the odds makers are going to be fairly close here. With no, they're giving the newcomer maybe 3-1 favorite. Having been stopped in 2 of his 3 UFC fights isn't great for the man from Greece, but I still think he's a tough guy. And I can't, I don't know. I think I've said before, I don't like to make someone coming into the UFC, making their debut, a big favorite. I know 3-1's not a huge favorite, but still, but I'll look more into it. But interesting fight. Moving on, we have Jeff Molina against Zhalgas Zhumagulov. Zhumagulov from Kazakhstan. And he, in the UFC, is 1-3, overall 14-6, 33 years old. 5'4" for a flyweight. Lost to Julian Paiva, lost to Amir Albazi, beat Jerome Rivera, and then just got stopped by Manel Kape. His opponent, Jeff Molina, is 24 years old. El Jefe, 10-2 record out of Glory MMA and fitness, great team over there with James Krause as the head coach and owner of Glory MMA, great fighter in his own right. We've talked to him several times. He is on a killer win streak, record of 10-2. He lost his first fight in 2017 as a pro. He lost his third fight in 2017 as a pro by split decision, and has won, it looks like, about 10 in a row or 9 in a row. Very tough guy. I imagine they have El Jefe as a fairly substantial favorite. They do, but not quite 2-1. But yeah, I think Jeff Molina looks good in that fight against and next up, we have Johnny Munoz Jr. and Tony Gravely. Tony is a great guy. We've interviewed several times. Let's take a look at Munoz Jr., 29 years old, 5'9", 135, 11-1 record, coming off a nice win over Jamie Simmons in his second UFC fight. Lost his first UFC fight to Nathan Maness, but there's no shame in that. And other than that, was unbeaten in 369, like 9 fights. So very tough guy, 11-1 record. 29 years old, 5'9", fast, tall. That's a tall one. Tony Gravely, 5'5", I think he actually may be 5'6", but shorter, just 1 year older, 30 years old, 22-7. He also did lose to Nathan Maness, but has won his 3 out of his other 4 UFC fights. So he's 3-2 in the UFC. That's a good fight. That's a good fight with some upcoming competitors in their prime. And the odds makers are feeling Tony Gravely just barely minus 135 to minus 160 are the odds. That's going to be a really good fight. I like Tony in that fight. I think Tony Gravely wins that fight, but it's going to be a hard fight. Johnny Munoz Jr. is a tough guy. Let's see if it shows where he fights out of. No, I never heard of that. Probably not. But okay, let's take a look at what is next. Next up, we have Nicholas Stolze against Benoit Saint Denis, or Benoit Saint Denis. Stolze, green mask. The man is from Germany, called the Green Mask. 12-5, 29 years old, 6 feet tall for a welterweight, slightly tall. He in the UFC is 0-2. Lost to Ramazan Hamid and lost to Jared Flash Gordon. He really needs a win here. This could be his last fight, although I did learn from my friend Justin Adams that some contracts are 4 fights to start, or some are 2, or it used to be 3 all the time, not necessarily 3 right now. But anyway, Stolze needs the win here, and that's just that. Mr. Saint Denis, out of Paris, France, is 8-1. He did lose his UFC debut, but he went the distance with the tough man called Capoeira, Elizu Zaleski dos Santos. Both of them really want to get their first UFC win. He's 26 years old, the god of war from France. I'm leaning Stolze in this one, although he's the dog. Stolze is a slight dog. Mr. St. Denis is slight favorite anywhere from -150 to -170. So that is interesting. Then we have Ode Osborne versus Zaruk Adeshev. Osborne, most of you know who he is. He fought at bantamweight for a while now. He is at featherweight, 5'7" at bantamweight, 30 years old. Jamaican sensation, fighting out of Waukesha, Wisconsin. And he in the UFC is batting about 500. Yeah, 2 wins, 2 losses. And it was loss, win, loss, win. He lost his debut to Brian Kelleher, and that was at bantamweight. Came back, beat Jerome Rivera, did lose to Manel Kaufman. Came back and beat CJ Vergara. Tough guy. Ode is a tough guy. And the guy he's going up against, Zaruk Adeshev, is the Lion out of Brooklyn, New York. And he has got a record of 4-3. And he has had already 3 UFC fights. Wow. So when he got into the UFC, that means he was 3-1. He got into the UFC with 4 fights. Wow. That's unusual. And he lost to Tyson Nam, lost to Sue Mukerji, and then beat Ryan Benoit. So this is probably an Ode Osborne victory here. He is almost a 2-1 favorite, anywhere from -160 to -180. And I tell you what though, the guy's a tough guy, but I think Ode Osborne wins that fight at least off my first look here. All right, next up we have Damon Jackson and Dan Argueta. I know Damon Jackson was going to be fighting someone else. I forgot who it was, but this is the last second replacement. I did pick Damon Jackson to win his last fight against Kimwella Kirk, and he did win. And I think he was a dog in that fight. He's a tough guy. Don't sleep on him. Out of Fortis MMA in Texas, the Leech, 20-4, 33 years old, 5'11" for a featherweight. Damn, that's a tall featherweight. And he's on a 2-fight win streak in the UFC. He has a record of 3-1. He beat Mirsad Bektic. He beat Charles Rosa and Kimwella Kirk. He did lose to Ilya Topuria, but who doesn't ever that Topuria fights? Pretty much as so far loses to him. So Jackson's a tough dude. 33 years old, maybe slightly past his prime as a featherweight, but not much, and he's still a killer. Plus, you can be kind of past your official prime and still be killing it. It just depends on you and your skills. Anyway, Dan Argueta, the determined, is 8-0, undefeated fighter, making his UFC debut, coming out of LFA, though. Those are good, solid wins. Every fight he's been in, he's won. He did lose an exhibition, the Ultimate Fighter quarterfinals to Ricky Tercios, who I believe eventually won the season. So there's no shame in that. And then he's been perfect since then. Only a pro for 3 years. And he's beaten everyone. He has a lot of submissions, a TKO, and only 1 decision. No, 2 decisions. Yeah, so out of 8 fights, he's got 6 finishes. That's a good finisher in the bantamweight division. A very good finisher. This is going to be a good fight, but I am going to say I'm leaning in Damon Jackson. And he is a huge favorite. Wow, I didn't really expect it. Well, I would have thought maybe -300, but he's almost -500. So you never know. There might be some money if you want to play the dog. Just making his UFC debut, but that's a lot of risk in my book. Next up, what do we have here? Next up, we have Joe Solecki and Alex De Silva Coelho. Joe Solecki is a tough dude, 11-3, only 28 years old, 5'9", 155 pounds. Was on a killer win streak, well, a good win streak, 3 in a row in the UFC, and that was part of a 6 win streak in a row that he had going. Came up against Jarrett Gordon and did lose a very close split decision, and that was last October. So you know he wants to get back on track. Very tough, talented fighter out of New Jersey. His opponent, Alex Da Silva Coelho, the man they call Leco, out of Brazil, 21-3, He has a 1-2 record in the UFC. Lost to Alexander Yakovlev, beat Rodrigo Vargas, and then lost to Brad Riddell. Went to the decision, though. Went the distance with Riddell, which is very admirable. Tough guy. So like he's got to be fairly substantially favored here, though. I would think. Why am I not seeing it? Yeah, there it is. Interesting. Minus 180, minus 170. Not a huge favorite. Not quite 2-1. I think Selecki wins that fight. I think it's going to be a good fight, though. The Brazilian kid is very tough, but I think Selecki wins that fight. All right, coming up with, I think, 5 more to go. We have Felice Herrig back in action, the best friend of our bantamweight, best friend of our strawweight women's champion, Carla Esparza, for many years. Felice is now 37 years old. She's got 23 fights. That's not a ton of fights at her age. So she's been, there's definitely wear and tear on her, but not as much as if she would have had 35 or 40 fights or something like that some people her age have. Anyway, just a ton of UFC experience. She's been in the UFC for 8 years or 7.5 years. At one point, she was on a really good win streak, having beaten Kylan Curran, beaten the young Alexa Grasso, Justine Kish, and Courtney Casey. However, she did lose the split to Karolina Kowalkiewicz 4 years ago, and then she did lose to Michelle Waterson 6 months later, and then she had almost 2 years off. She came back and got caught quickly by armbar from Verna Jandarova, who's a very tough fighter, as we know. And now back after an almost 2-year layoff is Felice Herrig, the little bulldog, 5'4", 115 pounds, 23 fights, 49. Karolina Kowalkiewicz, 36 years old, 12-7, 5'3", so she's got 19 fights, even less than Herrig. And Karolina is a tough fighter from Poland. A lot of UFC fights. She's been in the UFC for almost 7 years. So, almost a similar amount of UFC experience. She won her first 3 fights. She lost 2. She won 2. And then she is on a 5-fight losing streak. Got stopped quickly by Jessica Andrade, but most people do, especially at strong. Lost to Michelle Waterson by decision, Alexa Grasso by decision, Xiaonan Yan by decision, and then just got submitted by Jessica Panay, which most people were surprised at, including me. And that was the first round, and that was last August. So she's had less than a year off as opposed to the 2 years off. Nearly 2 years by Felice Herrig. Man, how do you handicap that fight? It's got to be pretty much a pick-up. Take a look. Odds makers have that fight as almost a pick-up. Herrig slightly favored because instead of being on a 5-fight losing streak, Herrig is only on a 3-fight losing streak. At their age, this is probably a loser-go-home fight, which, no disrespect, but like in pro wrestling, when someone contract was expired and they were going to retire or moving on to a different wrestling organization or getting booted out or whatever, sometimes they put them in a loser go home match knowing that they were going to lose and then they go out of the organization. So here there's no predetermined result, but the loser maybe, and I'll tell you what, if the winner is not really impressive, it's like the winner and the loser go home, which UFC sometimes do. I don't know what to call on that one. I really don't. They're both so tough. I hope they both look good. Then what do we have? Last few. We've got Alonzo Menafield and Ashkar Masharov from the Ukraine. Wow, it's not a lot of Ukrainian fighters, especially in light of what's going on here in the Ukraine. I'm sure they're fighting with a lot of passion. Marina Moreau won, as I expected to. Made a great speech. Kind of passionate, support her country. Anyway, so I don't know. Ashkar Basharov, 27 years old, 6'3", 205, good sized guy. Wow, again, this is another guy, just like the guy earlier, coming into the UFC without even fighting in any really recognizable high-level fights. So he is a huge question mark. His nickname is No Mercy. He's holding a title belt from some organization over in Europe. 21-8. He's on a 3-fight win streak. He's lost 2 fights, though, in the last 3 years by submission. Oh, no, one by TKO and one by submission. And he is 27 years old, 6'3", 205. And his opponent, Alonzo Benefield, the man they call Atomic, out of Fortis MMA, 34 years old, 11-3. He did lose a tough fight to William Knight. Before that, was on a good 2-fight win streak. A lot of UFC experience, 6 feet tall, 205, so he'll be the shorter fighter as usual, though, for Benefield. I think this is probably, I would think this is Benefield all the way. And I bet the odds makers have it probably 2.5, 3 to 1. Let's take a look. Not even 2 to 1 for Alonzo Benefield. I like Zoe here. Alonzo Benefield. Should be a good fight, though. This is the first look. I got to look more into it for sure. But Alonzo Benefield, I think here, this is part of the main card. And next up, we have Karine Silva and Poliana Botelho. So Karine Silva is a killer out of Brazil. 28 years old, 5'5", 125 pounds, a record of 14-4. She is on a 5-fight win streak, and she just won by submission, guillotine choke, and then the Dana White Contender Series, and then pretty much was fighting in Brazil before that. 28 years old, 18 fights. That's a pretty good amount of fights, so she's got some experience. Poliana Botelho, a lot more experience, 33 years old. She's only got 12 fights, so she has less fights, but a lot more UFC experience, because the other girl has 0 fights in the UFC, 1 Contender Series win, and Poliana Botelho has 3, 6, 7 UFC, 7 or 6 UFC fights, and she is 3-3. She beat Pearl Gonzalez to start her career in UFC. She beat Yuri Kondo. Did get subbed by Cynthia Calvillo about 2.5 years ago. Beat Lauren Mueller, and then lost by decision to Jillian Robertson, and lost by a split decision to Luana Carolina. It's so hard to know. There's no way to know what Karine Silva has, but I would make Botelho a slight favorite, and she is not. They're making the UFC debutante, Karine Silva, the favorite. And not a big favorite, though, maybe 1.5 to 1. I don't know. Hard to say here. There's just no way to know what Karine Silva has. I'm leaning Botelho, but I would have to look a lot more into it. I don't know why that fight's on the main card. I really don't. But I do love watching the women's fight, so maybe they wanted to make sure there was one on the main card. Although it looks like Felice and Carolina are on the main card. No, they're not. Okay, Michael Trizano, the Lone Wolf. I interviewed him about 1.5 years ago. Real cool dude. 9-2, 30 years old, 5'11", tall for a featherweight. Team Tiger Schulman. Got a very tough dude over there. And in the UFC, he is 3-2. He beat Joe Giannetti to start his career in the UFC 4 years ago. Beat Luis Pena. Lost to Grant Dawson, but who doesn't? Beat Ludovic Klein, and then lost his last fight earlier this year, just 4 months ago, to Hakeem Dawodu. No shame in that. Lucas Almeida is his opponent, out of Brazil, 13-1, but another guy making his UFC debut. It's interesting. He lost his way into the UFC as far as the Dana White Contender Series, but went back to Jungle Fight and won another fight. This may be somewhat of a last-second replacement. I would be surprised. But a good record, though, 13-1. But his one fight was lost in the Contender Series, and all the other fights were over in Brazil against kind of unknown opponents. So Michael Trizano should be a substantial favorite here. And you know what? Minus 240, minus 260. I thought he'd be a bigger favorite. I think there's value there in the lone wolf for sure. He's a talented guy. I got Michael Trizano here in this fight. Okay, and then I think we are coming down to the co-main event. And the co-main event is Dan Ige and Movsar Evelev. What a good fight. Ige is 30 years old now, 5'7", 145. It's about average size for a featherweight. Ige's been in the UFC for a minute. He jumped in 2018 in January, so 4.5 years. He lost his first fight to Julio Arce, and then he went on a 6-fight winning streak. Sorry about the siren there. I'll wait until that gets out of our ear. So lost to Julio Arce, beat Michael Santiago, Jordan Griffin, Danny Henry, Kevin Aguilar, Mirsad Bektic, and Edson Barbosa in a split decision that many people I think he felt Barbosa won, but still a really good fight. Not as good since then. He did kind of get somewhat dominated by Calvin Kattar, although I think he was a short notice replacement for someone and still showed up looking pretty good. And that was also 2020. That was his third fight in that year after having done 4 fights the previous year. They had been a little bit tired. Came back and beat Gavin Tucker with one punch. Tucker is a tough guy out of Canada. Then he did lose to the Korean Zombie Chan Yong-sung Jung, and then did lose to Josh Emmett, who has a huge fight coming up against Calvin Kattar. Very tough dude, though. Rugged, tough Hawaiian. And then they call 50K Dan Ige, 30 years old, still kind of in his prime in the last year or so of his prime for a featherweight, but still a lot of guys do good at these lower weights, even 30. Sometimes beyond. Movsar Evelev is a tough dude. 15-0, 5'8", 145, inch taller, 28 years old, so it's 2 years younger. He is riding a 5-fight win streak in the UFC. Not a lot of people can say that. And before that, he was 10-0 outside the UFC, having fought in M1. This is a tough dude out of Russia, in Ushita, Russia. And this is one of these really rugged Eastern Bloc dudes. His 5 UFC fights, he did beat Seung Woo Choi by decision, Enrique Barzola by decision, Mike Grundy by decision, Nick Lentz by split decision, and then Hakeem Dawodu by decision. That was a close competitive fight. So he's not finishing a lot of people, whereas Ige also goes to a lot of decisions. I think in the featherweight, there's there's more decisions than there are knockouts for sure, and maybe guys are so fast, Anyway, though, Evelev, this is tough. I think this is definitely a step up in class. I think for Evelev. I wonder what the odds are. I'm going to bet they're going to be making Evelev maybe a slight favorite. Let's see. Wow, they've got Evelev as a huge favorite. Minus 400 to minus 440. No, that's not right. That's not right. I mean, can Evelev possibly go in there and dominate and win a decision over Ige? 30 to 27, maybe. But to not even really give Ige a chance, that doesn't make any sense to me. I was thinking Evelev maybe minus 180, minus 160, maybe at highest minus 200, but minus 400 or 4-1. Give me that money on Dan Ige every day. I'm not saying he wins for sure, but he's live. That's an overlay. The odds shouldn't be that big. I don't see at all unless somehow Ige is hurt for some that. I'm talking about retiring or something, but I don't think I had it down to 30. Anyway, main event of the evening. It is the big man, Alexander Volkov, and Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Let's look at the big man from Suriname. They used to list him as 6'5", and he is not. And now they have him listing him at 6'2", and he actually, I believe, may be slightly shorter than that. But nevertheless, at least they adjusted it so it's not showing him at 6'5". Big, strong man, though. Biggie Boy now has 6 years. No, what am I saying? 3 years of UFC experience, but it's like 10, 11 fights. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, 9 fights. Not, but still 9 fights in 3 years in the UFC. That's great. That's the man's been putting in the work. I believed in this guy from the get-go, and I knew he would beat lower level and middle level UFC guys, in which he did 4 knockouts in a row over Junior Albini, Alan Crowder, Andre Arlovsky, and Alistair Overeem. He did get stopped by Francis Ngannou. It was kind of a weird fight. I think Biggie Boy wasn't used to someone just stepping in on him, backing him up, and then throwing bombs. And Francis can do that. I still do. Do I think it would be any different now? Probably not. But I think Rozenstruik got a little bit more experience. He did then come back and beat Junior Dos Santos. He did lose to Cyril Gane, came back and beat Augusto Sakai, and did lose to Curtis Blaze, who we interviewed on our show about 3 weeks ago. So since his 4 fight win streak in the UFC to start out his UFC career, he's been a lose one, win one, lose one, win one, lose one guy. And that would mean if that continues, then this is when he should win. He is 34 years old, 12-3, and has gone 3-3 in his last 6 fights after starting out much better than that. Alexander Volkov is going to be the older fighter here. No, he's 30. They're both 33. Wow. Volkov has been in the UFC longer than that. Yep, since 2016, and he was going back and forth, between Bellator and M1 before that, having been the Bellator champion. Started out his UFC fight with a great streak of wins, beating Tim Johnson, who has since moved to Bellator, and then Roy Nelson, Big Country, Stefan Skyscraper Struve, and Vicavallo, Fabricio Verdun, or Vicavallo. He did get caught by Derek Lewis after having won most of the 3 rounds before getting caught. He then did beat Greg Hardy, lost to Curtis Blaze, beat Walt Harris, beat Alistair Overeem, stopping both of them. Did get kind of out-strategized a little bit by the fresher fighter Cyril Gane, but most people do. Did beat Marcin Tybura, and then just got finished quick by Tom Aspinall. I think Aspinall is so good at throwing hands, and his wrestling is better than people think, not coming from the American collegiate wrestling world, being British. And so I just think that maybe Volkov underestimated the wrestling of the big Tom Aspinall, but Aspinall took it down, submitted quick. Biggie Boy is not going to be doing that. So this is probably going to be a striker battle. They both really need a win here, because I think at one point both of these men, I know Volkov was top 5 at one point, maybe 6 or 7 now, maybe, or something. And Biggie Boy, I think at one point was maybe 8 or 9 or 10, and I think he's out of the top 10 now. Really important fight for both men. 15 fights against 44 fights. Wow. 3 times the fights, and they're both 33 years old. Odds makers, I think they should probably have Volkov slightly favored. Let's see. And they do. I don't know. 5-round fight. Oh, man. Well, you know what? Volkov is more experienced in 5-round fights for sure. Although Rozenstruik, did he go 5? He did go 5 with Gone, and then he did go almost 5 full rounds with Overeem, stopping him in the 5th. This is a tough one. I'm gonna have to look more into it, but this one it could go either way. You know, this is a good fight. It can Volkov frustrate Rozenstruik and stay away from that huge power for 5 rounds, or can he not? Is kind of one of the bigger questions. But yeah, that's going to be a really good fight. I know Paul as of right now, and I think the odds makers are slightly correct. Having just a slight favorite, maybe 1.5 to 1 for Volkov. Anyway, that is my early look, and I will be doing my normal breakdown later this week with the man I call the Blood Diamond, my favorite Irish South African Aussie, Michael Cook. And that will be either Thursday or Friday. I'm going to say I'm pretty sure it's going to be, we're going to release that on Friday, post weigh-in. That's about it. MMA Power Hour show tomorrow on the Hannibal TV on YouTube right here and on Facebook. Check us out. We're confirming all the guests, but it's going to be some good UFC fighters. One thing we can announce that we have confirmed already, Andre Petrosky coming off that big win by submission. That's like a 3-1 underdog against the tough fighter Nick Maximov out of the Diaz camp. And can't wait to talk to Andre. And then before that fight, you guys may know, and it's up there in the archives, that I was saying I felt pretty strongly that Petrosky wins that fight, and certainly he shouldn't be 3.5 or 4 to 1 favorites. Talk to him and see what he thought when he saw those odds, and maybe he made some money on himself. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't. Anyway, that's about it. I gotta go maybe get a massage or something like that. That's pretty a lot as usual. That's about it, and we'll look forward to talking to you guys soon. Appreciate you joining me. Jump in. We're gonna leave the comments live for the replay here, and so feel free to jump in and chat and give me your thoughts on all these fights. Appreciate you guys. Talk soon.